The next part which works on the Selenium is the last part is hybrid framework. What do you mean by hybrid framework? Most of the companies usually used to work with hybrid framework. The combination of any two frameworks, the combination of any two frameworks is known as hybrid framework. Hybrid framework. That is either maybe keyword with data driven, or linear with data driven, or modular with data driven. So any combination we call as a hybrid framework. To design this framework, there is a methodology which we need to follow. The first method or the first procedure to be followed for generating or for enhancing the framework is implementation. The second one which we need to implement, which we need to perform on the framework is execution. And the third one is maintenance. So these are the three stages where we can implement your framework. The first stage is an implementation phase. The second phase is an execution phase. And the third phase is called as a maintenance phase. What are the things we need to create? What are the things we need to create for performing this implementation or execution or maintenance? First, we'll see that what are the packages do we need to create? Then we'll see what are the implementation and something like that. So packages to create for working on hybrid are first one, page objects. Next one is utilities. The third one is configurations. Next one is test cases. TestNG. The last one is Jenkins. So this is the procedure to be followed for enhancing the hybrid framework. So we need to create the page object model. We need to add your utilities. You need to create your configurations. You need to write your test cases. You need to generate your test cases. And we need to create a test engine frameworks. So wait for the test cases. And we need to work on the Jenkins. So these are all for report generations. We used to go with it. For report generation, we used to go with that. Okay, now we'll see. Next, in this XML TestNG XML dot, once you create your TestNG in this TestNG dot, we are going to create TestNG dot XML file, comma POM dot XML file. You may ask me, sir, what is the difference between TestNG XML and POM XML? The TestNG XML is for report generation. POM dot XML file is for adding your dependencies. You need to add your dependencies. So it is a piece of code where we can enhance the drivers or enhance what utilities we need to add in your project. So you may get an example. What do you mean that? POM.xml is dependencies where we need to add your jar files. There are different jar files where you can enhance in the POM.xml file. What are the jar files? Like Selenium jar file, JUnit jar file, extend reports, POM.xml extend reports. Next, Apache PY jar files, TestNG jar files. Those are all the different jar files where we are going to add in your POM.xml file. That's the difference between like TestNG XML and POM. In the TestNG XML, we are going to generate the reports, and POM.xml file, we are going to add your dependencies, mean the jar files. Next, we are going to create Maven. We are going to create your Maven project. So where you can run your POM.xml files. Next one is the last one is called Jenkins. It's called as a Jenkins. So after the pvm.xml, after the pvm.xml file, what we need to do is we need to create your maven run bat, maven.runbat. We need to execute your maven tests. Later on, we need to use for Jenkins for report generation, reports. So these are all the things which we need to work on. So page object, we need to create a page object, or utilities, we need to add your utilities, configurations we need to add, we need to create your test cases, we need to generate your reports, and we need to add your dependencies, and we need to run your Maven project, and you need to generate the reports. So these are all the different phases which we can work on. These phases which we can do it in implementation, execution, maintenance. So these three nothing but whatever the things we are going to learn, page object, these things will comes into the implementation, execution, and maintenance part. It comes under maintenance part. Now, when you come to the implementation phase, what are the things you need to work in your implementation phase? So in the implementation phase, we are going to create, in the implementation phase, we are going to create a Maven project. Create a Maven project. Under the Maven project, now we need to update the pym.xml file. If any changes, or if your jar file or been upgrading, then you can add your jar files in the Maven repository. Through the Maven repository, we are going to add into the pym.xml file. Okay. Now, after that, we need to create page objects. We need to create a page objects. Next, creating basic test cases. We need to create a test cases. Now, once you add your test cases, you need to read common values from test property file, If you are adding the property list, then we need to read your all the values from the property list, common files. Next, after that, we need to run the test cases on desired browser. Okay, executing test cases on desired browser. Next, we need to add your adding extent reports. Next, creating data driven test cases and adding new test cases. So this is the structure to be followed to work on your implementation phase. So in the implementation phase, what we are doing is we are going to create a Maven project. Under the Maven project, we need to upgrade your pym.xml file. Later on, we need to create your page objects. We need to create your basic test cases. We need to read all the values from the common files, and we need to run execution. Now, once execution is over, you need to generate the reports, and we need to create your framework designing, like data driven test or something like, okay, adding new test cases. So this is a procedure for that. Next, in the execution part, what we are going to do is run the test cases with Maven. So whenever you create a Maven, you will get a maven.xml file where we are going to add all your dependencies, and you can run all your dependencies to the Maven itself. Now you need to run all the test cases to Maven. There are many ways where you can run your test cases. One is using Maven, and we can run the test cases using Maven CLU, command line unit. Next, and once it is over, you can run the test cases using maven.bat file. Next, otherwise you can run the test cases test cases using Jenkins. So both are Maven bat files. Maven run.bat. So this is a not run, this is a run.bat file, and this is a Jenkins or nothing but Maven.run file. That is using bat files. What is the difference between these two? Is using run bat file is command prompt. Using run bat is for Jenkins, where we are going to use actually when you are using Jenkins, CI/CD pipeline is. Okay, we used to work with CI/CD pipeline, but here we are going to generate your report generations using maintenance, using execution. In the maintenance, what we are going to do is, in the maintenance part, we are going to execute the entire project and we are going to store that project in a single repository. So creating repository in GitHub. You need to create your repository. Next, commit the project code in local repository. Next, push the project code to critical remote repository from local git repository. Critical remote repository ki move cheskuntamata. Local repository or local git repository. Okay, so these are the things. So we need to create your repository. A repository is nothing but it is a folder where we are going to store your project. Now we need to push the project code to local repository. Mean that whatever the code is being generated in your in Eclipse, we are going to store that. We are going to push that code to your local repository in the GitHub. Now push the project code to critical remote from local repository. Whatever the data, whatever the code is being moved into the local repository, that should be coded and moved to the critical remote repository. So these are the things which comes under maintenance part. The first one is implementation, the second one is execution, and the third one is called as a maintenance part. So these three will comes under Maven report. This comes under hybrid framework. So now, okay. So now whenever you want to add your, first of all, what we need to do is, see, it is going to ask you create a Maven project. First one is Maven. So here, see, now when you want to work on a page objects, or when you want to, these are all the folders or these are all the packages where we can enhance your scripts. Okay, now this is the first maintenance part, is where you are going to enhance your scripts, where you are going to write your package or add your utilities, where we are going to add your report generations folder, where you are going to add your drivers folder. Everything should be comes under Maven project. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to creating Maven project. So how we are going to create a Maven project? For that, I'll show you. Just we need to go to the file, new, under the new, go to the other, select your, under the Maven, you can find a folder called Maven project. Under that, click on the next. So automatically it will ask you the name of the project. I have created that Maven project as new project, Now once you create a Maven project, here you can find different packages or different folders. Along with that, you can find one more folder called as a file called pom.xml file. Now pom.xml file is the storage of what we're going to store, storage of jar files. When you add your jar file, automatically it will be stored in the whatever a jar file has been added in the pom.xml file, that will be stored in the Maven repository. So through the Maven repository, you can see the added jar file through in pym.xml file. Now tomorrow, for example, if your jar file is been upgraded to 6.1 to 7.2, right? Now without creating Maven project, you have created Java project, right? In that case, what we can do, we need to delete that jar file. Again, we need to install the new jar file. We need to add that jar file. Now, in the Maven project, what we are going to do is, we are going to create in the Maven repository, in the Maven project, we are going to create a new, one second. Now, so here, in the Maven repository, once you create a pym.xml file, automatically Maven dependencies folder will be created. Under the Maven repository dependencies, whatever jar file is being upgraded in pym.xml file, this, for example, today, this is your dependencies. It is called as a dependency. The dependencies is nothing but a piece of code where we can enhance the jar files, where you can enhance your jar files for the required functionality. So here we are going, for example, you take as I have been added my Selenium jar file. The version is 4.7.2. Tomorrow, if your version is being changed to 5.7.2, then we no need to download it again. Just once you upgrade the jar file, that will automatically see in your Maven dependencies. You no need to download that. No need to uninstall and installing the new versions. Once you upgrade your jar file, or once you upgrade your jar file, that automatically reflects into the Maven repository. So that's a Maven dependency. Sorry, in the Maven dependencies. Here we can add any number of jar files. So here, when you're working with Maven project, we are going to add your Selenium Java, Selenium JUnit, next extend reports, xml.pym.xml file, with the mean that we are going to add your XML files. What is an Excel sheet? If we are going to work with Excel sheet, we are going to add your Apache PY jar file, testng jar file. These are all the jar files where we can add in your pym.xml file. In the pym.xml file. Now, once you add all your jar file, in the pym.xml file, the most important thing is we need to create some packages. Before creating the folders in this, there are two folders present in the Maven dependencies in the Maven project. One is src main Java and other one is src test Java. What is the difference between these two is src Java test is src main Java. It is used by the developers where they can write the basic code in the programming, basic code for the required function application. Now, the second one is src test Java is a folder where we can create the tester, or where the tester can create the scripts where he can add your jar files, or where you can add your dependencies, or where you can add your report generations, or where you can add your configurations, utilities. All these things should be done in your src test Java. Now, in the src test Java, you want to we can create your page objects. I told you na. So what are the things we need to work on this? We need to create your page objects. We need to create your utilities. We need to create your utilities. You need to create your test cases. We need to create your utilities. You need to create your jar files. We need to create your testng XML file, as well as configurations. So these are the things which we need to add in your Maven repository or Maven project. So create chestam ikkada. We are going to add your object repository folder. Next, we are going to add your, what are you going to add? We are going to add your test cases. We are going to add your configurations. We are going to add your Excel sheets. So mean that test data. We need to add your banking sectors. So, okay. So this is banking sectors is an example. But the thing is, what are the folders we require to add is page objects, utilities, configurations, test cases, testng.xml file, pvm.xml file, maven run, Jenkins. These are all the folders, or these are all the packages where we can create your folder, where you can create your different packages under page packages under testng src test java src test java. Now I already created, these are all the packages. Already I've been created the different packages and I've been stored in your, I was already created and I've been stored in the folder. So this is the part. Now here, once I created all the folders and I need to add my jar files. I need to add my jar files. Where I can add my jar files? Now, we have already created a pym.xml file, right? So, whatever the jar file we are going to add, that will be upgraded in the pym.xml file, which will reflect your jar file in, where it will be reflected? It will be reflected in Maven dependencies. It will be reflected in the Maven repository or Maven dependencies. Maven dependencies. Okay. Na? No. What are the type of jar files? What are the type of jar files which we need to add in your? No. Next. So what are the type of jar files which you can add in your Maven project? So first is creating Maven project. Under that, you need to create different packages. Next, we need to add your relevant jar into pom.xml file, which reflects in Maven dependencies. Reflects in your Maven dependencies. Next, what are the jar files? What are the jar files? Do we need to add? Do we need to add in pym.xml file? The first one is Selenium Java. Second one is Selenium JUnit. Selenium JUnit. Next, we need to add your testng. We need to add your what are the things do we need to add? Apache PY jar files. Next, extend reports. Okay, so these are the things which we need to add in your pym.xml file, which will reflect in your Maven dependencies. Maven dependencies. Okay, now this is the first part. Now once you create it, now what we need to do? We need to create some already created the packages. One is page object model, extend reports, configurations. Next, base class, test cases, test data, all the folders we already created, right? In that created folders or in that created packages, we are going to test the functionality. We're going to test the functionality.